Okay, everybody, I am back. Welcome to my channel, Such Is Life. This is my new channel, so please like, share, and subscribe. On this channel, I will be talking about the realities of life, my experiences pertaining to such, and significant topics that revolve around that, if you will. So this video here is now, I did the prawns. I did the pros in a previous video. I feel like I have a ton of pros and cons for New York. I can't elaborate as much as I'd like to on each, but I'll do separate videos. So let's get into it. Cons. And plus, since this is a new channel, I think I can only go up to 15 minutes. I don't know if that's still a thing, but I'm just being careful and only doing up to 15 minutes. All right, so let's get into it. Cons. Cons of living in New York City. One, right now that I had noticed is affordable housing. Because again, pay can fluctuate in New York depending on what type of gig you have, you know, what your career is. And it's interesting because they have a thing now called affordable housing, but then it's on Housing Connect. They say it's affordable housing, but for some of the spots, they'll say that the individuals can make up to over $100,000. I'll do a totally different video on that because that is so odd to me. Especially those who have programs like Section 8, FEPS, among other things, they're coming out of the shelter or just need to move. It's often hard for them to find apartments. A lot of the apartments in good neighborhoods, if you will, more specifically like in Queens, they're hard to come by. It's not that people aren't taking Section 8, it's that a lot of them, like when you do go to certain apartments, it's a ton of people there, whether Section 8 or not, right? So that's something to consider. Careful of where you're moving in Brooklyn as well, but that's a whole nother video because you'll see lower rent oftentimes in Brooklyn, but a whole nother video. All right, so let me try to focus on these and not go too far deep into each one. So yeah, apartments can be scarce. Housing market is crazy. You know, it's expensive. Family court in New York City. I know every city and a lot of court systems have a lot of corruption, especially in like the 90s and even still to this day. Their family court system in New York is so suspect. You have to be so careful. Just be very careful. That could be a video in and of itself. There was a time where a lot of children were being placed in foster homes, getting treated worse in foster homes. Another thing. Records are not public. So in my other videos, I was talking about how like when you move to a town or you meet somebody new, you might want to do a reverse search on them, look at public records. New York does not have that. Certain records, I'm sure, certain places you can get if you physically go in, but it's not a matter. A lot of things are not a matter of public record in New York. Not as much as you see in certain states, right? Like Florida. Let's see. There are healthy options. A lot of the corner stores now, a lot of the bodegas and whatnot, they offer fruit shakes, salads. So they're expanding. Only thing that I would say about that, one of the cons is definitely that, and no disrespect to anyone, you know, but even though I say that, it's kind of like an oxymoron, I guess, maybe to a certain degree, because another con to that is that you just see the same type of people running every corner store. I don't know how that happened, but a lot of Middle Eastern, more specifically people from Yemen, you still see a few Dominican spots, more so Dominican grocery stores now. Used to be a lot of bodegas that I won't even go there. So yeah, there's that. You won't see a lot of melanin rich owned businesses by indigenous North Americans, so-called Black Americans. You don't see a lot. They're there, but they're not a lot. But what you will see is a lot of Caribbean restaurants. And please do correct me if I'm wrong, because I have a lot of information here, so I can't elaborate and on every little thing. But if you want to add to it, please do. But yeah, a lot of West Indian shops. Now, this is not to say, but no, you know what? A lot of melanin-rich businesses, as far as barbershops, hair shops, that sort of things go. I could probably do a whole nother video on that. A lot of these things can be broken down into other videos. So, but yeah. And sometimes the way that melanin-rich children and other children are treated in these corner stores, depending on where, especially after school. Some of these people can be very disrespectful, and they're usually men running those stores. So a lot of them can be quite disrespectful to the children. And, you know, some children can be, they can, do the most or maybe try to take something from stores. But a lot of the time, the way that they behave towards these children is unnecessary. But, it depends on where you live, and not everybody's the same, right? But that's just something to consider. Another thing, meat, and I know I just went from one extreme to another, but meat is not always fresh, okay? For whatever reason, especially depending on in the inner city or, where there are a lot of people, concentrated people in your projects and stuff, the grocery stores will have the highest rates there because a lot of people are not driving, right? Even though there's a lot of people that don't drive, there are a lot of people that do, but a lot of people that are in that area are only going to go to that local shop, so they tend to hike the prices up, and the meat is not always fresh, right? So my suggestion is go to meat markets or travel, go to the island or wherever you need to go to your food shopping. ShopRite is decent, but that's the whole breakdown for borough by borough, right? Okay, so harassment by police. This is a very big thing in New York City. Again, more in the 5 boroughs, but I think it really just depends on where you live, because in the predominantly melanin-rich areas where so-called black people live, which are, again, you will hear me refer to them as melanin-rich. So in those areas, there are things like where detectives will, a lot of them are sitting up in the projects a lot of the time. Now, I mean, you can look at that in 2 different ways, but I'm not going to get into that. But a lot of the time, they like to run up on the youth. And the youth may not even be doing anything, and which is great. Again, when it goes back to the marijuana being legal there now, because a lot of arrests are being made for people smoking marijuana, that sort of thing. Or, even young teens being set up by police. Undercovers may come and ask them if they can get them some weed, that sort of thing. I mean, you don't see that in the suburbs. So take what you will from that. But it depends on where you live. And I'm going to do videos on borough, my experiences in each borough, what it's actually like to live there. All right. So prices are rising in everything. I mean, that's in a lot of places. Metro cards are not what they used to be. I don't know if I might have to make this video into 2, but let's see if I can get through this. Metro cards are not what they used to be. Used to be able to get many moons ago, used to be able to get a $7 Metro card and ride throughout the city all day. Back in the days when students had not Metro cards, they had bus passes. And there was a lot you could do on bus passes, because you could switch them up. Hold a story for a whole nother day, but if you're from the city and you went to school back when they were giving bus passes, you know what I'm talking about. But because we used to cut school and go everywhere, and maybe that's why they don't allow but so many passes on the Metro card now for students, which is unfortunate, because you have students who may want to go somewhere or do something on the weekend. And I think New York City somebody needs to let the mayor know that there needs to be more rides available on the Metro cards for students, at least, so they can move around, so they can do things within the city, etc. The next one is there are too many people in New York City. Too many people. Like on the train, I'm like, you know how like on the elevator it says the maximum capacity? They don't have that for the train. It's insane. And it's just crazy. It's wild. On the buses, it's a lot of people. I think New York is just way overpopulated now. You have a lot of people going there, and it's really a lot of people. A lot. And it makes it hard to, like I said, find apartments and that sort of thing, among other things. Did I put cons? Did I put my healthy options under cons? Oh, my fault, y'all. There's a lot here. So, New York tends to be kind of loud, okay? Depending on where you live, once again. But in the city, in certain boroughs, and I'll break those down in a separate video, but it can be kind of loud. And at odd hours of the night, especially in the summertime. People are partying, and don't let you live next to a West Indian and they partying, because that party is all night long to the next morning. No bullshit, okay? Again, depending on your neighborhood, it could be a lot of gang activity, so you want to be very mindful about where you're living, because the block can look nice, it can look spectacular, and then you turn around and you realize, oh shit, I am in a heavily gang affiliated area, okay? Because you may not, it's not always right in front of your face, and you might be quite taken for a loop. Let's see, let me get through the rest of these. The libraries in New York do not rent out laptops, and if they do, please bring that to my attention. I don't know if Long Island does, but I know they do in Florida, which is amazing. The libraries in New York don't offer a lot of things that they do in Florida, which is unfortunate. As much money as the libraries get up there, I don't see why they can't do like Florida does. In certain libraries here, they actually, well, they have extended hours, they have studio equipment where people can record, they have sewing classes, you can use the machines, they have Mac, they have a video room. I don't know why New York is not doing that. Also, in the school system in New York, here's one that I forgot. There's pros and cons to New York City school system, because even though there are a lot of specialized schools, there's a lot of politics into getting into them. And depending on where you live, the way that they set up the zones is to cut off certain people from going to certain schools. That's a whole nother video. Another thing. Now, I make light of the marijuana, right? But depending on where you live and where you're at and the type of child that you have, where the people in your family or whatever, drugs can be a thing. So be very mindful of that, because they get whisked away somewhere, especially in Manhattan, Chinatown, various areas. There's a lot of drugs going down over there, right? Like meth and heavy things, and young people getting involved in that, like true story. So, I feel like I missed some of my cons. Let's see if I can get through these. I know this is a petty one, but you can't wear your flip-flops in the city because your feet will be black, so keep that in mind. The bottom of your feet. Driving into the city can be insane, but it depends on what time you leave and come back. Let's see. There are a lot of outsiders, meaning people from different states, that are coming to New York. So a lot of the true New Yorkers are not really there anymore, or that can vary. Takes longer to get jobs versus down south in other states. Just depends on your area, but for the most part, especially for the youth, it's a pain in the ass getting jobs. And depending on where you live and what the situation is, what the climate is, you know, whether or not the youth even feel safe traveling, a whole nother story. Okay, so keep that in mind. The vaccine mandate, definitely a con, because now, even though they say that they took it back, there are still businesses that can say whether or not they want you to be vaccinated. And I personally, I'm not checking that, but to each their own. You know, if that's your thing, then, you know, more power to you. Traveling to work can be, if you live in Queens and you're not taking the Long Island Railroad, depending on where you live in Queens, you got to take, like a Laurelton, Cambria, you got to take a dollar van or a bus to the avenue, and then hop on the train from there. It could be an hour and a half to 2 hours, or if you're taking one of those so-called express buses, that can still take you about 2 hours to get from Queens to the city, depending on where you live, okay? But then there's other places that it's very easy to get around, right? So laundromats are a big thing in New York. So lots of laundromats, very local, that sort of thing. But one thing I want to say, I think I covered all my cons, and if I didn't, I guess I'll have to bring them up in another video. But I guess I'm kind of biased. So I love New York. I will always love New York. I love being able to walk places in New York. And my weight, I was able to keep my weight down while living in, well, I'm from New York, like I said. Queens all day. So, you know, it's just different. It's a different life, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. And like I said, I've had the best of both worlds, because I've had the luxury of living in Florida and New York and back and forth. But New York has my heart. That is my soul. And it can be a very beautiful place to live in. But, you know, it just depends on the order of life and what your setup is like. So if you have any questions, please post them below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please do not be shy, and make sure you please do subscribe. And I think that's it. I will be back with more videos This is a lot of information. So if you have any suggestions regarding the videos that I currently have on my page, please do write them below, or any suggestions on videos to do. I'm here for it. So thank you, and you guys have a wonderful day. Until next time, bye.